Welcome to Homeschool Now, your source for homeschool news, Texas updates, and the stories shaping homeschooling across America. This is Nita, your host speaking. So Texas just sent out 53,000 additional TEFA awards, and homeschooling families are starting to ask that important question, like what exactly changes if we accept this money? Over the last several weeks, homeschool groups, parent forums, church circles, social media discussions have been filled with confusion, awe, wonder, excitement. Some parents are saying this is a major win for homeschool freedom. Others are worried this is the beginning of government oversight, right? And many families are simply just trying to figure out what exactly does this mean for their home and their children. So in this video, we're just going to calmly walk through what TEFA is, what changed, what the homeschool options are, what is included, what's not included, some of those things like why some people are cautious, and the question Texas homeschool families should seriously think about before making the decision. So because whether your family participates or stays fully independent, the story still does matter. It affects you either temporarily or long-term. So let's start with the headline. Texas recently announced another large wave of education freedom account awards, bringing the total number of awarded students far more than was originally expected for the initial rollout. The state reported that there are 274,000 applications in 1 year. The number alone tells you something very important, and that is that demand is enormous, okay? Families across Texas are clearly looking for alternatives. They're looking for flexibility and educational options outside the traditional system, whether private or public school. And for homeschooling families, TEFA is going to open up a new wave of kind of like a brand new category. The homeschool or other option is now available. And under the current framework, homeschool families who participate can actually receive $2,000. Private school participants, of course, can receive larger amounts, and certain students with qualifying disabilities may actually receive significantly more, okay? Now, immediately, many homeschool parents begin asking, why is this homeschool amount lower than for the private school, okay? Or what exactly qualifies as homeschool? What can the money be used for? And most importantly, I think the question has been, what changes if we actually accept these funds? And that is where things become, let's say, emotionally charged, and people can become passionate, right? Because for many homeschool families, freedom matters far more than funding. Texas homeschool culture has historically been very independent, right? We love our independence. We love being able to homeschool however we want to. And for years, many Texas families have appreciated the fact that homeschooling in Texas has retained relatively hands-off where the government is concerned and where homeschool is concerned. Texas has long maintained that it does not regulate, accredit, monitor, or approve homeschool programs in the same way that other states do. And that independence is deeply important to many families. So naturally, whenever government funding enters the conversation, concerns are going to follow. Some parents immediately wonder, right, if money comes in today, do regulations come in tomorrow? And will future lawmakers kind of like take advantage of this time and begin to attach oversight to this money? Will accepting funds slowly change the relationship between homeschool families and the states? Okay, these are good questions. Now, be very clear at this moment, Texas homeschool law itself has not suddenly transformed into a heavily regulated system. And according to current homeschool advocacy explanations surrounding this TEFA application, participation is totally optional. Families are not pushed or forced into this program. Families who do not want to participate can continue to homeschool as they always have. Now, that is extremely important to understand because online discussions often move faster than facts and truth. And right now, there are two unhealthy sort of extremes developing online. One side is treating TEFA like a magical solution that fixes everything, right? The other side is treating it like homeschooling in Texas has already become like fully controlled overnight. Neither of those extremes are especially helpful or especially true. So parents, let's try to slow down, get clarity. We don't want to panic right off the set, okay? So let's slow down and ask the more practical question. Who might this actually help? Who's the target person here? For some families, $2,000 could genuinely make a difference in their homeschooling experiences, especially large families, right? Or especially single family, households, especially parents that have already been sacrificing so much financially to homeschool in the first place. For some families, that money could help offset educational costs that they were carrying all this time. And in a difficult economy, as we're currently experiencing, many parents are understandably asking whether they should ignore assistance that may help their children or go ahead and receive it. And that's not an unreasonable question. and I want to validate that even this moment. At the same time, however, other families may decide the amount is not worth any future uncertainty, right? You give me $2,000 today and tomorrow you're going to give me regulations. So some families strongly prefer remaining completely outside any government-connected educational funding structure, period. And honestly, different families may arrive at different conclusions here. That is why this conversation needs wisdom and not more outrage, which I've heard from lots of people so far. Because not every homeschool family has the same circumstances, same convictions, the same financial pressures, or the same long-term even concerns. Some people don't even plan to homeschool their families or their children beyond 1 or 2 or 3 years. So another thing worth mentioning is that many people online are already turning this entire discussion into curriculum shopping content. What should I buy? What curriculum is best with TEFA? What products should parents spend all the money on? That is not the direction this channel is going to be going, because Homeschool Now is focused on homeschool news, policy updates, family awareness, and helping parents stay informed about the educational landscape affecting homeschooling families and their children. So we're not becoming a curriculum review channel, and I want to focus on it because the bigger story here is not about shopping or curriculum programs. The biggest story here is that Texas homeschool families are entering an entirely new era of school choice policy, and whether parents support TEFA or remain cautious about it, this is a major shift in the educational conversation inside Texas. Now, here's another important point many families may not be thinking about yet, and that is that the sheer number of applications here matter politically, right? When hundreds of thousands of families apply for something in year one, lawmakers take note, right? That affects future debates. It affects future funding discussions. It affects future policy conversations. It affects political pressure, right? In other words, TEFA is not just a 1-week headline. This could shape Texas educational conversations for years to come. And because this is the beginning of implementation, many details will likely continue to evolve, such as, deadlines, guidance, clarifications, future adjustments, future debates, okay? So kind of be prepared for that, whether you accept the funds or not. Parents should expect ongoing development. That is why staying informed matters so much right now. Just tune in to find out what's happening because it'll affect your family either now or later. Now, personally, I think one of the healthiest approaches families can take at this time is just to avoid making emotionally, decisions. Do not let fear push you into any decision. Don't let excitement push you into any decision. Just ask careful questions, think long term, consider your family's convictions, consider your family's financial situation, consider your comfort level, and most importantly, stay informed instead of just simply reacting to headlines or social media arguments. Because homeschooling has always involved intentional decision making, right? I'm intentional about educating my child at home in a way that other people may not be. So that principle still applies here. Now, before we close, there is another reason this story matters nationally, and that is that while Texas is expanding educational choice through programs like TEFA, and other states are actually moving in very different directions. In fact, Connecticut just passed a major homeschool oversight bill that many homeschool families across the country are now watching very closely. And that contrast is important. Some states are increasing flexibility, right? Others are increasing oversight discussions. So this means homeschool families everywhere will need to pay attention to the broader national climate surrounding home education. Here on Homeschool Now, so let me know your thoughts in the comments. Would your family ever consider participating in TEFA, or do you see it as even helpful at all? Do you see it as concerning? Do you see it as government oversight in the making? Do you see it as a little bit of both? And what questions do you used to have about the rollout? If this video has been helpful to you, and if it brought clarity to the situation, please subscribe to Homeschool Now for ongoing Texas homeschool updates and national homeschool news, practical conversations for families navigating today's educational landscape. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next update.